chosen one, why did you wake up at 3 a.m. last night with your chest tight and your mind racing? Why have the last 72 hours felt heavier than the last 72 years? Why does it feel like something unseen is circling your life, waiting, watching, measuring? You didn't find this message. Heaven intercepted your scroll. Listen to me carefully, and I need you to hear this. With every fiber of your being, there is a clock ticking in the throne room of God right now. Not the clock on your wall, not the calendar hanging in your kitchen. I'm talking about the ancient timepiece of eternity. And beloved, it has your name engraved on its face. Monday, 3 p.m. That's not just another hour on another day. That's your appointed time, your Kairos moment. The converging point where everything you've survived, everything you've prayed for, everything you've been waiting decades to understand it, all collides in one sacred window. And if you miss it, you don't just lose a blessing, you forfeit a bloodline shift. I know you felt it this weekend. The warfare intensified, didn't it? The anxiety spiked, the doubt screamed louder. Old wounds started bleeding again. That wasn't random, chosen one. That was hell in a panic. Because the enemy knows what's dropping at 3 p.m. Monday, and he's been working overtime to make sure you sleep through it, scroll past it, or convince yourself you're too old for God to move like this. But you're not too old. You're finally old enough to recognize when heaven is speaking. You've lived 70, 80, maybe 90 years. You've buried dreams, buried loved ones, buried versions of yourself you thought you'd become. You know that timing is everything. You know that some moments, if you miss them, they don't come back around. God doesn't waste warnings at your age. When he speaks now, he's not just speaking to you. He's speaking through you for generations you'll never meet. Before we go deeper, and what I'm about to reveal will shatter every lie you've believed about Monday, I need you to do something. Type "I'm listening" in the comments right now. Not for me. For heaven. That's not engagement. That's agreement. That's you telling the Almighty, I'm awake, I'm here, I'm ready. Before we continue, I want to pause and thank every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just giving, you're sowing seeds into a harvest that will feed hungry souls who feel forgotten. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here. Your time, your attention, your open heart, it all matters. Now, are you ready to discover why Monday at 3 p.m. will either become your deliverance day or your greatest regret? The clock is moving, chosen one, and it's counting down. Why has your body been aching in places medicine can't explain? Why have you been waking up between 2 and 4 a.m. with a weight on your chest that won't lift? Why does it feel like invisible forces have been circling your home, your mind, your peace, especially in the last week? Because there's a war happening over Monday at 3 p.m., and you're the prize. Listen to me, chosen one. Heaven doesn't operate on suggestions, it operates on appointments, divine appointments. And when God schedules a meeting with your name on it, hell mobilizes every demon it can spare to make sure you're distracted, discouraged, or dead asleep when that moment arrives. You think the chaos in your life this past week was random? The argument that came out of nowhere, the bill that suddenly couldn't wait, the phone call that reopened old wounds, the exhaustion that hit you like a freight train even though you barely did anything? That wasn't life happening. That was warfare intensifying. Because the enemy knows something about Monday at 3 p.m. that you're just now beginning to understand. There is a spiritual clock ticking in the throne room of God, not metaphorically, literally. Ecclesiastes 3:1 declares it plainly, to everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under heaven. Every single thing that happens in your life, every tear, every triumph, every delay, every deliverance, it all moves according to divine timing. And Monday at 3 p.m. is your appointed hour. But here's what breaks my heart. Here's what keeps me up at night praying for people just like you. Most believers spend their entire lives waiting for God to move, begging him to show up, crying out for breakthrough, and when he finally sets the appointment, when he finally marks the calendar, When he finally says, Monday at 3 p.m. is yours, they miss it. Not because God wasn't clear, but because the enemy was louder. You've been waiting your whole life for a moment like this. Think about it. 70 years, 80 years, 90 years of prayers that felt like they bounced off the ceiling. Decades of believing for something you couldn't see. Years of watching others get their miracle while you kept the faith in secret. And now, right now, God is saying, Monday at 3 p.m. That's when everything shifts. This isn't just another blessing, dear one. This is a portal of reversal. This is the hour when what's been locked gets unlocked. When what's been delayed gets delivered. When what's been denied gets decreed. Revelation 3:8 says, I have set before you an open door, and no one can shut it. Monday at 3 p.m., that door swings wide. But you have to be awake. You have to be aware. You have to be there. Let me tell you what Monday at 3 p.m. really is. It's a course correction hour. It's the moment when God steps into your timeline and says, everything that's been off track, I'm realigning it now. Every wrong turn you took in your 40s, every bad decision you made in your 50s, every opportunity you missed in your 60s, every relationship that fell apart, every dream that died. Monday at 3 p.m. is when the divine architect looks at the blueprint of your life and says, I'm restoring the years the locusts have eaten. Isaiah 60:22 promises, I am the Lord. In its time, I will do this swiftly. Swiftly. Not slowly, not eventually, swiftly. When God decides it's time, things don't crawl into place, they explode into alignment. What took 40 years to break can be rebuilt in 40 seconds when heaven says go. But you have to understand something that's going to shake you. You survived nights that should have killed you for this hour. Every time you almost gave up but didn't, that wasn't your strength. That was divine preservation. Every time depression whispered, end it, but something stopped you that wasn't luck. That was heaven saying, not yet. I need them for Monday at 3 p.m. The panic attacks that visited you at 3 a.m., they were hell trying to steal your 3 p.m. The financial crisis that hit last month, that was the enemy trying to distract you from what drops this Monday. The family drama that erupted out of nowhere, that was warfare designed to make you so exhausted, so emotionally drained, so spiritually numb that when 3 p.m. Monday arrives, you'll be too tired to receive. Every disappointment in your life has been training for Monday at 3 p.m. Every closed door taught you to recognize when God opens one. Every betrayal showed you who to trust when real blessing comes. Every delay built the patience you'll need to steward what's about to be released. You weren't being punished, beloved. You were being prepared. This is a destiny intersection. This is where your past, present, and future collide in one holy moment. This is where decades of faithfulness finally pay dividends. This is where God looks at the enemy and says, you tried to destroy them. Watch me promote them. But here's what I need you to hear with absolute clarity. Missing Monday at 3 p.m. doesn't just mean you miss a blessing. It means you forfeit a bloodline shift. It means your children stay bound to cycles you could have broken. It means your grandchildren inherit struggles you had the authority to end. It means you die with oil still in your lamp, with purpose still in your veins, with assignments still unclaimed. And in a moment, I'm going to tell you exactly what will happen if you miss it. But first, you need to understand why the enemy has been fighting you so hard. Because what's coming Monday at 3 p.m. isn't just for you. You know what nobody talks about? The weight. Not the weight on the scale. I'm talking about that invisible heaviness that settles on your chest when you wake up in the morning. That exhaustion that 8 hours of sleep can't touch. That loneliness that follows you even in a room full of people. You've been feeling it, haven't you? And you can't quite explain it to anyone because they look at you like you're just getting old, like it's normal, like you should accept it. But chosen one, what you're feeling isn't age, it's warfare. Let me tell you something that's going to shift everything you thought you understood about these last few years of your life. That fatigue that makes you want to cancel plans. That's not your body giving out. That's a spiritual sedation designed to keep you off the battlefield. That loneliness that makes you feel forgotten. That's not because people don't care. That's because you're being positioned for something so powerful that it requires holy isolation. Your body is slower, yes. But your spirit? Your spirit is moving faster than it ever has. You just haven't recognized it yet. Think about Moses. 80 years old when God called him from that burning bush. His body was worn. His confidence was shattered. He'd spent 40 years in a wilderness thinking his moment had passed. But God said, "Now you're ready. Now you understand what the young cannot comprehend." You see, there's a lie the enemy has been whispering in the ears of every senior saint in America. He's been telling you that your best days are behind you, that your influence is fading, that you should just sit down, be quiet, accept your irrelevance. But here's the truth that's going to resurrect something dead inside you. Your friends died, but your calling did not. Let that sink in for a moment. Everyone you buried, your spouse of 50 years, your childhood friends, the people who knew you when you were young and full of fire, they're gone. And with each funeral, each empty chair at the table, each phone that doesn't ring anymore, you felt yourself disappearing too, like you're supposed to fade away with them. But God has kept you here. And if you're still breathing, it's because your assignment isn't complete. The book of Joel says it plainly. Your old men will dream dreams. Not your old men will remember dreams they had when they were young. No, present tense, active, alive. God gives fresh vision to seasoned vessels because he knows what the young don't, that the sweetest fruit takes the longest to ripen. But the enemy knows this too. And that's why the attacks have been so vicious. You thought it was just life getting harder. You thought it was just the natural progression of aging. But chosen one, when did the depression get worse? When did the anxiety spike? When did you start feeling like you were drowning in silence? It was right when you started getting closer to your breakthrough. Think about it. The warfare always intensifies at the doorway of deliverance. When the Israelites were 3 days away from the promised land, that's when Pharaoh's army came charging after them. When Jesus was 40 days into his fast, that's when Satan showed up with his temptations. When Paul was about to plant churches that would change the world, that's when he got thrown in prison. The closer you get to your 3 p.m. Monday moment, the louder hell screams. Because the enemy recognizes what you're carrying, even when you don't. That loneliness you've been feeling. It's not abandonment, beloved. It's holy isolation. God has been pulling you away from the noise, away from the distractions, away from the people who would talk you out of what he's about to do through you. He's been positioning you in a place where his voice is the only voice you hear. Like a lighthouse that's been dark during calm seas, but reignites when the storm comes. That's you. You've been dark, not because your light went out, but because you were being reserved for the storm that's here now. This generation needs what you carry. They don't need your youth. They need your wisdom. They don't need your energy. They need your endurance. They don't need your excitement. They need your tested faith that can look at the impossible and say, "I've seen God do this before." But here's the urgency that should grip your soul right now. Time is not unlimited. I don't say that to scare you. I say it because it's true. The pendulum is swinging, and it's swinging faster than it used to. You feel it, don't you? That sense that something's coming to a head, that whatever God has been preparing you for, it's almost time. There's an elevator leaving the station, and you're either on it or you're not. Monday at 3 p.m. isn't just another moment. It's the last boarding call for something you've been circling your entire life. If this part is speaking to you, if you feel the weight I'm describing, if you recognize the warfare, if you've been battling that unexplainable exhaustion and loneliness type, I feel this in the comments right now. Because I need to know who I'm talking to. I need to know who's ready to understand that their fatigue is actually preparation, that their isolation is actually positioning, and that their Monday at 3 p.m. is about to change everything. But before that change can happen, you need to understand what's been stolen from you while you've been tired. And what I'm about to reveal is going to make you furious at how long you've been living beneath your spiritual authority. Listen to me, chosen one. I'm about to tell you something that's been hidden in plain sight for 2,000 years. Something the modern church forgot to teach you. Something that will explain why your spirit has been restless all weekend. 3 p.m. is not just another hour on the clock. It's the hour when heaven moved for humanity. It's the hour when the veil tore. It's the hour when everything changed. Matthew 27:46 records it with precision. And about the 9th hour Jesus cried out with a loud voice, saying, Eli, Eli, lema sabachthani. That is, my God, why have you forsaken me? The 9th hour, in our time, that's 3 p.m. That's the exact moment when the Son of God breathed his last breath and the supernatural exchange happened. Death for life, curse for blessing, poverty for abundance, sickness for healing. But here's what will shake you to your core. That wasn't just a historical moment. That was the establishment of a spiritual gateway. Every day at 3 p.m., heaven leans closer to earth. Every day at that hour, the atmosphere shifts. And on Monday, the first day, the reset day, the beginning day, something compounds. You see, in Hebrew tradition, Monday isn't just the day after Sunday. It's called Yom Sheni, the second day of creation. Genesis 1-6 tells us what God created on the second day. Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. Monday is the day of divine separation. The day when God divides what stays from what goes. The day when he splits your past from your future. Now combine that with 3 p.m., the hour of divine exchange meeting the day of divine separation. You're not just looking at a time slot, beloved. You're looking at a portal, a crossroad, a moment when heaven is asking you one question: are you coming through, or are you staying stuck? But I know what you're thinking. I'm 75 years old. I'm 83. I'm 91. My time for new beginnings is over. Stop right there. That's the enemy's favorite lie, and you've been swallowing it like poison for too long. Moses was 80 when God called him at the burning bush. 80, not starting a quiet retirement, starting a revolution, leading millions, splitting seas, speaking to God face to face. His greatest chapter didn't begin until the world said he was finished. Abraham was 75 when God told him to leave everything and follow a promise he couldn't see. Sarah was 90 when she birthed nations from a dead womb. Caleb was 85 when he said, "Give me this mountain," not "give me a rocking chair." Give me the giants, give me the fight, give me what everyone else is too afraid to claim. Your age isn't your limitation, it's your authority. Every year you've survived is another year of proof that God's not done with you yet. Every decade you've endured is another level of wisdom that the young don't carry. Every wrinkle on your face is a battle scar that says, "I'm still here, and hell couldn't stop me." So when I tell you that Monday at 3 p.m. is your appointed hour, I'm not speaking to your body, I'm speaking to your spirit. And your spirit doesn't have an age limit. But here's the urgency you need to feel in your bones right now. This isn't a message you can bookmark and watch later. This isn't something you can think about and decide next week. Because 3 p.m. on Monday is a moving target. It's a Kairos moment. That's the Greek word for appointed time, not chronos, which is clock time, but Kairos, which is God's time. Divine timing, the fullness of time. And Kairos moments don't wait for you to get ready. They arrive whether you're prepared or not. Think about the 10 virgins in Matthew 25. 5 were wise, 5 were foolish. They all heard the same announcement: the bridegroom is coming. But only 5 had oil in their lamps when he arrived. The other 5 missed it, not because they weren't invited, not because they weren't believers, but because they weren't ready when the door opened. And here's what breaks my heart. Verse 11 says, "The foolish ones came later, knocking, begging, 'Lord, Lord, open to us.' But he answered and said, 'Assuredly I say to you, I do not know you.'" The door closed. The moment passed. They missed their hour. I don't want that to be your story. I don't want you to look back on Monday and realize you were distracted, you were doubtful, you were scrolling past the very appointment heaven marked for your deliverance. So let me ask you something, and I want you to answer this honestly in your heart right now. What have you been praying for? What have you been crying out to God about in the middle of the night when no one else is listening? What promise has He whispered to you that you've been waiting years, maybe decades, to see? What if Monday at 3 p.m. is the answer? And at the end of this message, I'm going to tell you exactly what to do at that hour. Not some vague instruction like just pray. I'm talking about specific, biblical, warfare-level positioning that will align you with what heaven is releasing. Most people will miss it because they'll be too busy, too distracted, too convinced that nothing special happens anymore. Don't be one of them. Because, chosen one, if you miss this crossroad, you don't just lose a blessing, you stay at the intersection while your destiny drives past you. The question burning in the throne room right now is simple. Will you be ready when the hour strikes? Listen to me, chosen one. There's something happening to you right now that you think is falling apart, but what if I told you it's actually falling into place? You've been through 70, 80, maybe 90 years of life. You've survived wars, recessions, losses that would have destroyed weaker souls. But these last few days, something's been different. The weight feels heavier. The memories won't stop flooding back. And you can't shake this feeling that you're being forgotten, overlooked, pushed aside. That's not age talking, that's warfare. Right before God releases a Monday blessing at 3 p.m., hell launches a final assault. And beloved, the enemy doesn't attack what he's already conquered. He attacks what's about to break free. You want to know why this weekend felt like emotional hell? Because Monday at 3 p.m., you're scheduled for a spiritual earthquake that will shatter every chain your family has carried for generations. But first, you have to survive the test. Think about Job. The Bible says in Job 1-8 that God Himself pointed Job out to Satan. Have you considered my servant Job? The Almighty bragged about him, and what happened next? Everything Job owned was destroyed in a single day. His children, his wealth, his health. His wife told him to curse God and die. His friends accused him of hidden sin. Why would a loving God allow this? Because Job was about to receive double for his trouble. But first, the enemy had to be allowed one final assault to prove that Job's faith wasn't based on his blessings, it was rooted in his character. You are Job in this generation. The memories flooding back this weekend? That's not random nostalgia. The enemy is pulling up every regret, every mistake, every moment you wish you could redo. He's replaying the funeral of your spouse, the child who stopped calling, the business that failed, the dreams you buried. Why? Because he knows that if you step into Monday at 3 p.m. carrying shame, you'll miss what God is releasing. 1 Peter 5-8 warns us. Be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. But here's what most people miss. A lion's roar is loudest right before it loses its territory. That roar isn't strength. It's desperation. The sadness you've been feeling, the sudden wave of loneliness that hit you out of nowhere, the feeling that you don't matter anymore, that your best days are behind you, that you're just taking up space while waiting to die. That's the lion's final roar. He's trying to convince you that you're finished when God is saying you're just getting started. Let me tell you what else has been happening. Family tension spiked this weekend, didn't it? Someone said something that cut deeper than it should have. An old wound reopened. Maybe your children were short with you. Maybe your grandkids were too busy to call. Maybe you felt invisible in your own home. That wasn't coincidence. That was strategic. The enemy knows your Achilles heel. For seniors, it's not temptation, it's irrelevance. It's the lie that whispers, nobody needs you anymore. Your wisdom doesn't matter in this modern world. You're outdated, out of touch, out of time. But that lie comes from hell, not heaven. Moses was 80 when God said, now you're ready. Sarah was 90 when promise became flesh. Anna was 84 when she recognized the Messiah, while younger priests walked right past him. Your age isn't your disqualification, it's your discernment. You've lived long enough to recognize the sound of a lion's dying roar. But here's what the enemy is really afraid of. He's not scared of your past, he's terrified of your Monday. Because at 3 p.m., when heaven releases what's been held in the vault with your name on it, you're not just receiving a blessing, you're becoming a threat. A grandmother who finally understands her prophetic authority is more dangerous to hell than 1,000 lukewarm believers. This is why the attack came when it did. This is why the storm intensified right before the shift. This is why you've been feeling emotions you can't explain, weight you can't name, warfare you can't see. Exodus 14 shows us the pattern. The Israelites stood at the Red Sea with Pharaoh's army charging behind them, water blocking their path forward, and Moses declared in verse 13, "Do not be afraid. Stand firm, and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today." Stand firm. Not run away, not give up, not agree with the voices saying you've missed it. Stand firm. Because the storm before the sunrise doesn't mean there's no morning coming. It means morning is so close that darkness is fighting for its final hour. If you've been feeling this warfare, if every word I'm speaking is naming what you couldn't articulate, type, "I'm under attack" in the comments right now. Not so I know. So, heaven knows you recognize what's happening. Because recognition is the first step to victory. But here's the question that will determine whether you receive what's coming Monday at 3 p.m. Will you let the enemy's final assault convince you to retreat? Or will you recognize it as proof that you're standing on the edge of your greatest breakthrough? Listen to me, chosen one. What I'm about to tell you isn't theory. This isn't motivational fluff to make you feel good for 5 minutes. This is revelation that will either save your bloodline or leave you wondering for the rest of your days what could have been. At exactly 3 p.m. on Monday, something shifts in the spiritual realm, not metaphorically, not symbolically. I'm talking about an actual, measurable, supernatural alignment that happens whether you're aware of it or not. But here's the devastating truth. If you're not positioned to receive it, it passes right through you like wind through an open window. You've felt it before, haven't you? That moment when everything suddenly clicks. When peace floods your chest for no logical reason. When clarity cuts through confusion like lightning splitting the night sky. When burdens you've carried for decades suddenly feel lighter. That's not coincidence, beloved. That's heaven opening a door. But here's what most people don't understand about divine doors. They don't stay open forever. Think about Noah. Genesis 7:16 says, "Then the Lord shut him in." Not Noah, not his family. The Lord shut the door. For 120 years, that door stood open while Noah preached and built. But when the rain started falling, when the floods began rising, that door closed. And everyone who waited too long, everyone who thought they had more time, everyone who dismissed the warning, they were locked outside of their deliverance. At 3 p.m. Monday, a door with your name carved into the wood is either going to swing wide open or slowly, silently close. And beloved, some doors in the kingdom don't open twice in one lifetime. Let me tell you what will happen if you're awake at that hour. If you're positioned, if you're paying attention. First, you'll feel a sudden inner peace that makes no earthly sense. Your circumstances won't have changed. Your bank account will read the same number. Your body will still carry the same aches. But something inside you, something ancient and eternal, will exhale for the first time in years. That's the Holy Spirit marking you present. That's heaven confirming, "I see you. You showed up." Second, clarity will cut through your confusion like a surgeon's blade. Questions you've been asking for decades will suddenly have answers. Decisions that paralyzed you will become crystal clear. Relationships you've been confused about will reveal their true nature. Ecclesiastes 3:11 says God has made everything beautiful in its time. At 3 p.m., your timing and God's timing collide, and what was murky becomes transparent. Third, old heaviness will release. That weight you've carried since your spouse died, since your children stopped calling, since that diagnosis came, Since that betrayal happened, it won't disappear, but it will shift. You'll feel it lift just enough that you can finally breathe fully again. Isaiah 61:3 promises the oil of joy for mourning, the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness. That exchange happens in moments of divine appointment. Fourth, you'll feel a supernatural pull toward obedience. Something you've been avoiding will suddenly feel urgent. A conversation you've been putting off will demand your attention. A step you've been afraid to take will feel possible for the first time. That's not you working up courage. That's heaven downloading boldness. But here's where it gets dangerous. Here's where I need you to hear me with absolute clarity. If you miss that hour, if you're distracted, if you're asleep, if you're scrolling through your phone watching cat videos while heaven is trying to commission you, you don't just miss a blessing, you remain in the cycle. The same financial pattern that's haunted your family for 3 generations, it continues. The same emotional prison that's kept you bound, it stays locked. The same spiritual fog that's clouded your discernment, it thickens. Heaven's window is open, beloved, but not forever. There are appointed times in Scripture that passed and never returned. The woman with the issue of blood had one chance to touch Jesus' garment in that crowd. Zacchaeus had one moment when Jesus looked up into that tree and said, "Today salvation has come to your house." The thief on the cross had one final hour to cry out, "Remember me." What if Monday at 3 p.m. is your one chance moment? Picture this with me. There's a door standing in the spiritual realm right now with your name carved into the wood. Your full name. The name God called you before your mother even knew you were in her womb. That door has been there your entire life, but most days it's locked because the timing wasn't right. But at 3 p.m. Monday, that door cracks open. Just a crack, just enough for you to push through if you're watching for it. At that exact hour, heaven will check who is awake, not physically awake, spiritually awake. Who has eyes to see? Who has ears to hear? Who has a heart soft enough to respond when the King whispers their name? And if you're asleep, if you ignore the stirring in your chest, if you dismiss this as just another message, just another dramatic preacher, just another waste of your time, that door doesn't just stay cracked open waiting for you to eventually notice. It slowly, silently closes. And beloved, I need you to understand something that might shake you to your core. Some divine doors only open once per season. Miss the season, and you delay your destiny by another cycle, another year, another decade. And at your age, how many more decades do you have to waste? This isn't about fear. This is about reality. Jesus wept over Jerusalem because they didn't recognize the time of their visitation. Luke 19:44. They missed their moment, and it cost them everything. So let me ask you something that should make your heart pound. What if you've been waiting 70 years for Monday at 3 p.m.? What if every closed door, every delayed answer, every season of silence has been leading to this one moment when everything aligns? Are you going to be awake for it? Because what I'm about to tell you next will reveal exactly what heaven expects from you at that hour, and it's simpler than you think, but more costly than you've ever imagined. Now listen to me very carefully, chosen one. What I'm about to give you isn't theory. This isn't something to write down and think about later. This is your activation protocol. This is the instruction that unlocks what heaven has been holding in reserve with your name on it. You've spent decades praying, decades hoping, decades wondering if God still moves the way he used to. But here's what you need to understand. God doesn't just move when you pray. He moves when you position yourself to receive what he's already released. Think about Naaman in 2 Kings chapter 5. This mighty warrior had leprosy, and the prophet Elisha told him to dip 7 times in the Jordan River. Not 6 times, not 8, 7. At first, Naaman was furious. "That's too simple," he said. "I expected something more dramatic, more worthy of my status." But his servants asked him a question that changed everything. If the prophet had told you to do something great, would you not have done it? How much more then when he tells you, "Wash and be cleansed"? Naaman almost missed his miracle because the instructions seemed too simple. Don't make the same mistake. At 3 p.m. on Monday, not 2:58, not 3:15, at exactly 3 p.m., I need you to do something that will feel almost too easy. But that's how God works with His chosen ones at your age. He doesn't ask you to climb mountains anymore. He asks you to trust Him in the stillness. Here's what you're going to do, and I need you to write this down right now. First, sit in complete silence for 3 minutes. Not in front of the television, not with your phone in your hand. Find a chair, a quiet room, a sacred space where it's just you and the presence of God. Let the noise of the world fade. Let the anxiety settle. Let your spirit remember what it feels like to be still before the Almighty. Psalm 46:10 says, "Be still and know that I am God." 3 minutes of stillness. That's all heaven is asking. But in that stillness, something shifts in the atmosphere around your life. Angels take their positions. Demonic interference is silenced. The frequency of your spirit aligns with the frequency of heaven. After 3 minutes, I need you to speak this activation prayer out loud, not in your head. Out loud. Your voice carries authority that your thoughts do not. Say these exact words. Lord, I step into the door you opened for me. I receive what you released. I align with your timing. My blessing meets me now. But here's where it gets deeper, and this is where most people stumble. You cannot receive new wine if you're still holding old wineskins. Jesus said in Matthew 9:17, "Neither do people pour new wine into old wineskins. If they do, the skins will burst, the wine will run out, and the wineskins will be ruined." So after you speak that prayer, I need you to release one heavy memory, just one. That betrayal from 30 years ago that still makes your chest tight when you think about it. That regret from a decision you made in 1987 that you've replayed 1,000 times. That shame from something you did that you've never forgiven yourself for. Speak it out. I release this memory. I give it to God. It no longer defines my future. Then, and this is critical, forgive one person, just one, not everyone who ever hurt you, just one name. Maybe it's your ex-spouse who destroyed your trust. Maybe it's the child who hasn't called in 5 years. Maybe it's the friend who betrayed your confidence. Maybe it's yourself. Say their name out loud. I forgive. Name. I release them from the debt they owe me. I trust God to settle accounts I cannot settle. When you do this, beloved, you're not just being spiritual. You're removing the blockage that's been stopping heaven's delivery system from reaching your address. Unforgiveness is like a locked door. You can knock all you want from the inside, but until you unlock it, nothing can come through. After you've released and forgiven, stand up. Yes, stand up, even if your knees hurt. Even if it takes you a minute. Stand on your feet and speak this declaration with everything in you. My blessing meets me at 3 p.m. and I will not miss it. What God has released, no devil can stop. What heaven has ordained, earth must obey. I am ready. I am willing. I am receiving right now. Now here's what you need to understand about the next 24 to 48 hours. You're going to see confirmation. Not in 2 weeks. Not in 6 months. Within 2 days, God is going to show you that something shifted. It might be a phone call you weren't expecting. It might be clarity about a decision you've been struggling with. It might be peace that floods your spirit in the middle of the night. It might be a financial door opening that was bolted shut yesterday. But you will know. You will feel it. Heaven responds when you obey with precision. This isn't about rituals, chosen one. This is about alignment. It's about positioning yourself at the exact moment when heaven's distribution system is releasing what's been stored up for you. It's about saying yes when God says now. If you will honor this instruction, if you commit right now that you will be in position at 3 p.m. on Monday, type, "I'll be ready at 3 p.m. in the comments. That's not just a statement. That's your agreement with heaven. That's you telling the Almighty, I'm not missing what you're releasing. But what happens if you don't show up at 3 p.m.? What happens if you let fear, doubt, or distraction steal this moment. That's what we need to talk about next, because the cost of missing God's appointed time is far greater than you realize. Now, listen to me carefully, because what I'm about to tell you is going to explain everything that's been happening to you lately. Every strange occurrence, every unexplainable moment. Every time you've questioned your own sanity because something felt different but you couldn't put your finger on it. You see, when God marks a specific time for your breakthrough, when heaven circles Monday at 3 p.m. on the eternal calendar, something shifts in the spiritual atmosphere around your life. And chosen one, you need to understand this. Your age is not a limitation. It's an advantage. You've lived long enough to know the difference between coincidence and confirmation. You've walked with God long enough to recognize when He's moving, even before you see the full picture. The younger generation mistakes every feeling for a sign. But you've been refined by decades of experience. Your spiritual radar is sharper now than it's ever been. And that's exactly why you're picking up frequencies that others are missing entirely. Let me tell you the 5 prophetic signs that appear when heaven is preparing to release something massive into your life. And I need you to listen with everything in you, because if you've experienced even one of these in the last 72 hours, it's confirmation that Monday at 3 p.m. isn't just another appointment, it's your divine intersection. The first sign is sudden emotional release. You're sitting in your living room, minding your own business, and suddenly tears just start falling. Not because you're sad, not because something triggered a memory. You can't even explain it. It's like something inside your chest just cracked open. That's not weakness, beloved. That's your spirit recognizing that breakthrough is close. Psalm 126:5 says, "Those who sow in tears shall reap in joy." Your tears aren't random, they're prophetic preparation. Heaven is softening the soil of your heart for what's about to be planted Monday afternoon. The second sign, and this one is going to shake you, is a memory resurfacing from decades ago. Maybe it's something from 1973. Maybe it's a conversation you had in 1985 that you haven't thought about in 40 years. And suddenly, out of nowhere, it's playing in your mind like a movie in high definition. You're wondering, why am I remembering this now? Because God is connecting the dots of your life. He's showing you that what seemed like a closed chapter was actually preparation for the next one. That memory isn't nostalgia. It's prophecy. It's God saying, remember when I was faithful then, I'm about to be faithful again. The third sign is a random phone call from someone who disappeared. Could be an old friend who moved away 30 years ago. Could be a relative you lost touch with. Could be someone from church you haven't spoken to since 2008. And they call you out of the blue with no real explanation. I don't know why, but I just felt like I needed to reach out. That's not coincidence. That's heaven repositioning people around your life, because what's coming Monday requires witnesses. God is gathering the right people at the right time to see what He's about to do. The fourth sign is an internal push to declutter old belongings. You're suddenly going through closets you haven't touched in years, throwing out things that used to have meaning but don't anymore. It feels random, but it's not. Ecclesiastes 3:6 tells us there's a time to keep and a time to cast away. God is making you let go of the old because He needs space for the new. You can't receive Monday's blessing with your hands full of yesterday's baggage. This isn't spring cleaning. This is spiritual preparation. And the fifth sign, this is the one that confirms everything. Your sleep is shifting. You're waking up at unusual prophetic hours. Maybe it's 3:33 a.m. Maybe it's 4:44 a.m. Maybe you're lying there at 2:17 inches the morning, wide awake, and your spirit is restless but not anxious. That's because your internal clock is syncing with heaven's clock. God is adjusting your frequency. You're becoming a spiritual radio, and the signal is getting stronger. The old noise is fading, the worry, the fear, the doubt, and divine frequency is coming through clearer than it's been in decades. If any of these signs showed up in your life already, type, "I saw it" in the comments right now. This isn't just engagement. This is you letting heaven know you're paying attention. This is you confirming that you recognize God's fingerprints all over your recent days. But here's what you need to understand, and this is critical. These signs don't show up for everyone. They show up for those who are marked, for those who carry assignment, for those whose Monday at 3 p.m. isn't just another hour, it's an eternal hinge point. You're not imagining things. You're not losing your mind. You're not making connections that aren't there. Your life is speaking a language that only the spiritually awakened can understand. And if you've experienced even one of these signs, it means heaven is preparing you for something so significant that your entire bloodline will feel the shift. But recognition isn't enough. Signs without obedience are just missed opportunities. And that brings us to the most crucial question you'll face in the next few days. What happens if you see the signs, but ignore the summons? Now listen to me carefully, chosen one, because what I'm about to tell you is going to explain every single thought that's been torturing you since you felt that shift in your spirit. You know what nobody warns you about? Nobody tells you that the moment after God touches you is when the real warfare begins. Not before the blessing, after it. Because hell doesn't panic when you're praying for breakthrough. Hell panics when breakthrough actually arrives. And right now, as you're sitting there listening to my voice, something's happening inside your mind, isn't it? Even as hope is rising, doubt is whispering. Even as faith is building, fear is creeping. You felt something stir when I mentioned Monday at 3 p.m., but now there's another voice saying, "Who are you kidding? You're too old. You've missed too many moments. God's big moves are for other people, not for someone like you." That's not your voice, beloved. That's the enemy's last desperate strategy. See, the devil knows he can't stop what God has ordained for Monday. He can't cancel your appointment. He can't close the window. So he's doing the only thing he has left. He's trying to convince you not to show up. He's attacking your mind, flooding your thoughts with every failure from your past, every disappointment you've survived, every time you believed and got hurt. You've lived 70, 80, 90 years. You've been disappointed before, haven't you? You've hoped before and watched those hopes die. You've trusted before and felt the sting of betrayal. And somewhere along the way, your mind learned to build walls. Not walls of hatred, walls of protection. Your psyche learned to expect less so you'd hurt less, to dream smaller so you'd fall softer, to settle for survival because abundance felt too dangerous. That's why right now, even as something sacred is stirring in your chest, there's another part of you that's terrified, because blessings scare the part of you that was raised on survival. But here's what you need to understand, and I'm speaking prophetically right now. Whatever fights you after your blessing is proof of what your blessing will fix. Think about that. The doubt attacking you? Your blessing is going to restore your confidence. The fear whispering you're unworthy? Your blessing is going to prove your identity. The memories of past failures rising up? Your blessing is going to rewrite your story. The Apostle Paul knew this warfare. 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 7 through 9. He begged God 3 times to remove his thorn in the flesh. 3 times, but God said, "My grace is sufficient for thee, for my strength is made perfect in weakness." Paul's warfare didn't mean God abandoned him. It meant God was about to display his power through Paul's weakness. Your mental battle right now is not evidence of God's absence. It's evidence of God's presence preparing to move. But I need you to hear something that's going to cut deep. The enemy knows your history. He knows every time you got your hopes up and life crushed them. He knows that doctor's appointment in 1987 when you got the diagnosis. He knows that phone call in 2003 when your child said they weren't coming home for Christmas anymore. He knows that bankruptcy in 2008. He knows every grave you've stood over, every dream you've buried, every version of yourself you've mourned. And he's using those memories as weapons right now. He's playing your greatest hits of disappointment on repeat in your mind, hoping you'll believe that Monday at 3 p.m. will be just another letdown. But what if it's not? What if this time is different? What if the very reason you've survived everything you've survived is so you'd still be here for this moment? Job chapter 42, verse 12. So the Lord blessed the latter end of Job more than his beginning, not Job's youth, his latter end. After the loss, after the pain, after the questions, God gave him double for his trouble when everyone thought his story was over. Your mind is going to tell you to protect yourself. Your past is going to whisper, "Don't get your hopes up." Your age is going to suggest, "You're too old for God to move like this." But I'm here to tell you that God is rewriting the programming your pain installed. See, your mind learned to protect you from disappointment. That's not weakness, that's survival. But now God is saying, "I don't need you to survive anymore. I need you to thrive. I don't need you to protect yourself anymore. I need you to trust me." And that's terrifying, isn't it? Because trust is the hardest thing you've ever done. Trust has cost you before. Trust has left you bleeding. Trust has made you look foolish. But here's the prophetic word I'm releasing over your life right now. What God is about to do at 3 p.m. Monday will heal the part of you that's afraid to believe again. This isn't just about receiving a blessing, chosen one. This is about God restoring your ability to receive. Because the greatest tragedy isn't that you never got what you needed. The greatest tragedy is that you stopped believing you deserved it. So, when those thoughts come, and they will come when doubt rises, when fear whispers, when your past tries to predict your future, I need you to do something radical. Don't fight the thoughts. Recognize them. Say out loud, "That's the enemy's counterfeit. That's hell's panic. That's proof my blessing is real." Because if there was nothing coming Monday at 3 p.m., you wouldn't be under this kind of mental assault right now. But there's something else you need to know. Something that will determine whether you receive what God is releasing or let it pass by untouched. Now listen to me very carefully, chosen one, because what I'm about to reveal has been hidden in plain sight for your entire life. You think Monday at 3 p.m. is just about receiving one blessing, but that's not how heaven operates. That's not how the kingdom works. God doesn't deal in single transactions. He deals in sequences. There is a second door. Not a door you can see with your natural eyes. Not something made of wood or metal or glass. I'm talking about a spiritual gate that exists in a dimension your mind can barely comprehend, but your spirit has always known was there. And this door, this sacred ancient doorway, only activates after you walk through the first one at 3 p.m. Monday. You see, most people think breakthrough is a destination. They think you pray, you believe, you receive, and it's over. But that's infant Christianity. That's spiritual kindergarten. What God is doing in your life right now is far more sophisticated, far more layered, far more magnificent than a single moment of breakthrough. Heaven builds in sequences, not shortcuts. Think about the Israelites at the Red Sea. That moment when the waters parted, that wasn't the finish line. That was door number one. Once they walked through on dry ground, another door appeared, the wilderness. Then another door, Mount Sinai. Then another, the Promised Land. Each door required obedience. Each door opened only after they walked through the previous one. You've been praying for decades, haven't you? Praying for that one thing. That restoration you thought was impossible at 75 years old. That relationship you thought was dead and buried. That financial miracle you stopped believing could happen. That healing the doctors said would never come. That prodigal child who hasn't called in 15 years. And God has been whispering the same thing to your spirit over and over. Walk through the first door. Trust me at 3 p.m. Monday. Do what I'm asking you to do in that appointed hour. And then watch what I've been building behind the curtain. The second door unlocks the blessing you thought was impossible at your age. But here's what's going to mess with your mind. Here's what's going to challenge everything you thought you knew about how God moves. This second door will not appear the way you expect it to. It won't look like what you've been praying for. It won't sound like the answer you rehearsed in your head. It won't arrive through the person you thought would bring it. God is about to answer your 40-year-old prayer through a Monday afternoon moment you almost missed. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine you're standing in a hallway, a long, sacred hallway that stretches into eternity. And along this hallway are doors. Hundreds of them, thousands. Each one marked with your name. Each one containing a different piece of your destiny, your restoration, your inheritance. But here's the mystery that will blow your mind. These doors are connected. They're linked. They're sequential. You can't open door number 7 until you've walked through door number 1. You can't access door number 12 until you've obeyed at door number 3. Heaven operates on a divine progression that requires your participation at every single threshold. This is why some of you have been stuck for years. This is why the breakthrough hasn't come. This is why you've been praying and fasting and believing, but nothing's moved. Because you've been standing in front of door number 1 Monday at 3 p.m. and you haven't walked through it yet. You've been too afraid, too skeptical, too convinced that God doesn't move like this anymore. But He does, and He is, and He will. If you'll just step. Hebrews 11:6 tells us plainly, without faith it is impossible to please Him, for he who comes to God must believe that He is, and that He is a rewarder of those who diligently seek Him. A rewarder, not a single reward. Multiple rewards. Sequential rewards. Door after door after door of blessing that builds on itself until you're walking in a dimension of favor you never dreamed possible. What if I told you that the second door leads to emotional restoration? What if behind that door is the peace you haven't felt since 1987? What if that door opens and suddenly the anxiety that's plagued you for 30 years just lifts? What if you walk into a room of your soul you thought was locked forever and discover Jesus has been in there the whole time, cleaning, healing, preparing? What if the second door leads to relational restoration? What if Monday at 3 p.m. triggers a sequence of events that by Tuesday morning causes your daughter to pick up the phone and call you? What if the son who swore he'd never speak to you again suddenly feels an unexplainable pull to reach out? What if the friend who betrayed you 20 years ago shows up at your door with tears streaming down their face, asking for forgiveness? What if the second door leads to financial restoration? What if the Social Security check that's supposed to arrive Tuesday is somehow doubled and the bank can't explain it? What if the medical bill you've been dreading gets marked paid in full by an anonymous donor? What if the money you lost in 2008 starts coming back to you through channels you never even knew existed? I'm not talking about fairy tales, beloved. I'm talking about the God who owns the cattle on 1,000 hills, who controls the wealth of the wicked stored up for the righteous, who delights in prospering His servants. But here's the urgency that should be gripping your chest right now. This second door is connected to Monday. It's activated by Monday. It's unlocked by what you do or don't do at 3 p.m. Monday. Miss the first door, and the second one stays sealed. Walk past your appointed time, and you forfeit the sequence. Ignore heaven's alarm clock, and you'll spend the rest of your life wondering what could have been. The hallway is real. The doors are ready. The sequence is set. And Monday at 3 p.m. is door number 1. But the question burning in the throne room of heaven right now is this. Will you have the courage to walk through when everything in your natural mind is screaming that this sounds too good to be true? Because what's waiting behind the second door will require you to believe in a God who's bigger than your doubt. Chosen one. As we come to the end of this sacred message, I need you to hold on to 3 eternal truths that will anchor your soul in the days ahead. First, Monday at 3 p.m. is not just another moment, it's your appointed time. God has marked it on heaven's calendar with your name. This is your Kairos moment, where everything you've survived, everything you've prayed for, collides in one divine window. Second, there is a second door waiting behind the first. God doesn't deal in single blessings, He deals in sequences. Your obedience at 3 p.m. Monday unlocks a hallway of restoration you never knew existed. Emotional healing, relational breakthrough, financial miracles. They're all connected, all waiting, all ready to be released. Third, missing this moment doesn't just cost you a blessing, it forfeits a bloodline shift. What God is doing Monday affects generations you'll never meet. But beloved, I need you to hear this with absolute clarity. You are not walking this path alone. The same God who parted the Red Sea, who made the sun stand still, who raised Jesus from the dead, He is still moving in your life right now. He hasn't forgotten you. He hasn't abandoned you. Every breath you take is proof that your assignment isn't complete. And you have a community here. Thousands of chosen ones just like you, carrying the same fire, feeling the same call. We are praying for you. We are standing with you. You are not alone. So let me ask you this final question. When Monday at 3 p.m. arrives, will you have the courage to walk through the door heaven is opening? Now, bow your head with me. Let me pray over you with the authority of someone who has walked with God through fire. Heavenly Father, I lift up every precious soul hearing these words right now. You know their names, you know their struggles, you know the battles they've fought in silence. Lord, place your mighty hand on their shoulders in this moment. Let them feel your presence like a warm embrace, reminding them they are loved beyond measure, chosen beyond understanding, and called beyond their circumstances. Father, I pray for Monday at 3 p.m. Open their spiritual eyes to recognize the door. Give them supernatural courage to walk through it. Silence every voice of doubt, every whisper of fear, every lie that says they're too old or too late. Let your perfect peace guard their hearts and minds. God, I speak blessing over their families, their finances, their health, their relationships. Where there has been drought, bring rain. Where there has been silence, bring breakthrough. Where there has been pain, bring healing. Activate the second door. Release the sequence. Let Monday become their testimony that echoes through eternity. In Jesus' mighty name, Amen. Now, I want to hear from you. Comment below and tell me what God spoke to your heart today. What are you believing Him for at 3 p.m. Monday? Don't hold back. This community will surround you with prayer. And if this message touched your soul, share it with someone who needs to hear that their appointed time has come. Someone is waiting for this exact word. Thank you for staying with me through this entire journey. If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel and ring that notification bell. We're building something powerful here, a family of chosen ones who refuse to miss their moment. Monday at 3 p.m., beloved, set your alarm, mark your calendar, prepare your heart. Your door is opening.